Before you feel your first buzz, alcohol has already invaded your brain, challenged your liver, and started changing the way you think. Have you ever had a drink, laughed with friends, felt completely normal, and never stopped to ask one unsettling question? What if, long before you feel that first wave of relaxation, a silent chemical chain reaction has already begun rewriting the way your body works? That thought has stayed with me for years. The more time I spend exploring biology, the more I realize that the most ordinary moments often hide the most extraordinary stories. A glass of beer on a Friday night, a toast at a wedding, a sip of whiskey after a long day, they all look harmless sitting in your hand. Yet beneath your skin, an invisible traveler has just crossed the border into one of the most complex ecosystems ever created. And here's the part that genuinely surprised me when I first learned it. Ethanol, the alcohol found in every drink, isn't welcomed by your body as nutrition. From a biological perspective, it's recognized as a toxin, a molecule every organ must identify, process, and eliminate before it causes too much disruption. Your cells aren't celebrating its arrival, they're immediately getting to work. I'm not saying this to judge anyone. I enjoy understanding science far more than telling people what choices they should make. What fascinates me is watching millions of years of evolution respond to a single sip of alcohol with astonishing precision. The journey begins before you even swallow. The inside of your mouth is lined with delicate mucosal tissue, constantly keeping everything moist and protected. Hidden beneath that surface are tiny blood vessels, quietly capable of absorbing a small amount of alcohol almost instantly. It's a microscopic event that most of us never notice, yet it marks the first interaction between ethanol and your bloodstream. Then comes one of my favorite pieces of anatomy. As you swallow, a thin flap called the epiglottis moves with perfect timing, sealing your airway and guiding the liquid into the esophagus instead of your lungs. It happens so effortlessly that we rarely appreciate the incredible coordination taking place every single time we drink. Moments later, alcohol reaches the stomach, where another invisible decision is made. If your stomach is empty, the gate leading toward the small intestine stays relatively open, allowing alcohol to rush forward and enter your circulation much faster. If you've eaten, that same gateway slows everything down, buying your body precious time. But here's the twist that kept me digging deeper into this subject. The stomach is only the beginning. The real story, the one that changes your brain, your heart, your hormones, and even the choices you make, is only just getting started. What happens next is the moment I always picture as the point of no return, because once alcohol leaves the stomach, it enters a biological highway that reaches nearly every corner of your body. I've always imagined the small intestine as one of nature's greatest engineering achievements. It doesn't look dramatic from the outside, yet its inner surface is designed with millions of tiny folds and projections that create an enormous area for absorbing life itself. Every meal you eat depends on it. Every vitamin, every amino acid, every drop of water eventually passes through this remarkable gateway. Alcohol simply slips into that system and takes advantage of it. Within minutes, ethanol crosses the intestinal lining and disappears into an intricate network of blood vessels. At that instant, it stops being a drink and becomes part of you. It's carried through the circulation with no concern for your plans, your conversations, or whether you feel anything yet. Biology has already begun moving forward, and every road leads to the liver. The more I learn about this organ, the more respect I have for it. Quietly resting beneath the ribs, it works every second of every day without applause, filtering chemicals, storing energy, producing proteins, and keeping countless metabolic processes in balance. Few organs endure as much stress while asking for so little recognition. Then alcohol arrives, and the liver immediately goes to work. An enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase grabs onto ethanol and transforms it into acetaldehyde. It's a clever defense mechanism, yet it comes with an ironic twist. the new molecule is actually more toxic than the one that entered your body. Fortunately, another enzyme quickly converts acetaldehyde into acetate, a much safer substance that your cells can eventually break down into carbon dioxide and water. At least that's what happens when the system isn't overwhelmed, drinks faster than the liver can keep up, and ethanol escapes into the bloodstream before detoxification is complete. The heart receives it, pumps it into the lungs, and something almost invisible begins to happen. Tiny amounts of alcohol diffuse into microscopic air sacs and leave your body every time you exhale. That's why a breathalyzer works, not because it measures what's in your mouth, but because your lungs quietly reveal what's flowing through your blood. What fascinates me most is realizing that this entire process unfolds without our awareness. While we're talking, laughing, or raising another glass, billions of cells are already negotiating with a molecule they never invited inside, and the most profound conversation of all is about to begin when that molecule finally reaches the organ that shapes every thought, memory, and decision we believe is entirely our own. And once alcohol crosses into the brain, the journey stops being purely biological and starts becoming deeply personal. This is the part that has always fascinated me the most, because nothing about the brain feels mechanical. Every memory, every laugh, every quiet moment of self-control, every hesitation before making a decision exists because billions of neurons are constantly exchanging tiny chemical messages. It's an unimaginably busy conversation taking place every second of our lives, and alcohol doesn't silence that conversation, it subtly changes the language. One molecule begins influencing several neurotransmitter systems at once, dopamine pathways become more active, rewarding the brain with feelings of pleasure and relaxation. At the same time, GABA, one of the brain's primary calming messengers, increases its influence, slowing neural activity and softening anxiety. Meanwhile, glutamate, the system responsible for alertness, learning, and rapid thinking, becomes less effective. I used to think alcohol gave people confidence, now I see something much more interesting. It doesn't create courage out of nowhere, it simply lowers the volume of the internal voice that usually asks, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Suddenly conversations become louder, jokes seem funnier, strangers feel like old friends. The song you would never sing in public somehow sounds like the perfect performance. The brain isn't operating at full precision anymore, yet the person experiencing it often feels exactly the opposite. That contradiction is what keeps pulling me back to neuroscience. The very organ responsible for evaluating reality is simultaneously being altered by the chemical it's trying to evaluate. The result is a temporary world where confidence rises, while judgment quietly slips away. Alcohol also encourages the release of endorphins, adding another layer of warmth and well-being that explains why social drinking can feel so rewarding. For a short time, pleasure, reduced inhibition, and slower critical thinking become intertwined into a single emotional experience. But what amazes me most is how invisible all of this remains. Nobody can watch neurons changing their signaling or neurotransmitters shifting their balance. We only see the outward effects, a different laugh, an impulsive decision, a story someone regrets the next morning. And while our attention stays fixed on the brain and its remarkable chemistry, another hidden network has already begun responding in silence, adjusting hormones, accelerating the heart, and preparing the rest of the body for consequences that won't fully reveal themselves until long after the music stops. While the brain steals the spotlight, I've come to believe the body's quieter reactions tell an even more fascinating story. One of the biggest surprises I discovered while diving into human biology is that alcohol doesn't simply relax us. Beneath that familiar feeling of ease, an incredibly sophisticated survival system is already adjusting to the presence of a foreign chemical. Deep inside the brain sits the hypothalamus, a tiny structure no larger than an almond that spins every second monitoring temperature, hydration, energy, and countless other signals that keep us alive. Working together with the pituitary gland, it functions like an invisible command center, sending hormonal instructions throughout the body without us ever noticing. Alcohol immediately becomes part of that conversation. Stress hormones begin shifting. Adrenaline and cortisol enter the picture, activating pathways designed to prepare the body for action rather than rest. I've always found this contradiction remarkable. A person may feel calmer, speak more slowly, and believe they're unwinding, while internally their physiology is quietly becoming more stimulated. The heart beats faster, blood moves more forcefully through the circulation, sweat glands become more active. The body is balancing relaxation in the mind with heightened activity beneath the surface, and the effects don't stop there. As someone who enjoys learning about exercise physiology, I was fascinated to discover that alcohol also reaches skeletal muscle, where it can interfere with protein synthesis, the microscopic rebuilding process that allows muscles to recover and grow after physical activity. It made me realize that a workout doesn't truly end when you leave the gym. Your cells continue rebuilding for hours afterward, and alcohol suddenly becomes an unexpected participant in that process. Then another invisible shift begins. The pituitary gland reduces its release of antidiuretic hormone, a messenger that normally tells the kidneys to conserve water. Without that signal, the kidneys become far more willing to let fluid leave the body. What seems like a harmless inconvenience, making repeated trips to the bathroom, is actually the beginning of dehydration. But water isn't leaving alone. Electrolytes that help regulate nerves, muscles, and fluid balance are lost along the way, quietly making it harder for the body to restore equilibrium. The more I connect these biological pieces, the more I see alcohol not as a substance affecting one organ, but as a ripple spreading across an entire living system, with each organ responding in its own language until all of those tiny changes finally merge into the familiar experience waiting on the following morning. And when all of those invisible ripples finally converge, they create the one experience almost everyone recognizes the moment they open their eyes the next morning. I've always found it fascinating that, despite centuries of drinking and decades of modern research, the hangover remains surprisingly mysterious. Science has identified many pieces of the puzzle, but no single explanation perfectly captures why one night of celebration can transform into a morning of exhaustion, nausea, thirst, and regret. Maybe that's because the body is never fighting just one problem. While you were sleeping, your liver kept working to break down alcohol as efficiently as possible. Your kidneys continued losing water and electrolytes. Your brain tried to restore the delicate balance of neurotransmitters that had been temporarily disrupted. Hormones slowly shifted back toward normal, while every organ quietly attempted to return to the stability it had before the first sip. Even acetaldehyde, that highly reactive molecule created during alcohol metabolism, remains one of the leading suspects behind many hangover symptoms. It's a reminder that the body often pays a price not only for the substance itself, but also for the complex chemistry required to eliminate it. What surprises me most, though, is how differently this story unfolds from one person to another. Two friends can sit at the same table, drink the same amount, and wake up feeling completely different. Genetics influence how quickly enzymes process alcohol, biological sex affects blood volume, and alcohol concentration. Age changes metabolism, food in the stomach slows absorption, overall health quietly shapes the entire experience. The same molecule enters two different bodies, yet it travels through two entirely unique biological landscapes. That's one of the reasons I never see biology as a collection of facts anymore. I see it as a language, a way of understanding the hidden conversations taking place inside us every second of every day. The heart never asks for recognition, the liver never complains, the brain never announces that its chemistry is shifting. They simply keep working, adapting, protecting, and recovering in remarkable silence. And perhaps that's the lesson I keep returning to every time I explore subjects like this. The human body is astonishingly resilient, But resilience is not the same as invincibility. Every choice leaves a biological footprint, whether we notice it or not. Once you understand the invisible journey of a single drink, from your first sip to the final stages of recovery, you don't just learn what alcohol does to the body. You gain a deeper appreciation for the extraordinary system that spins every moment trying to keep you alive, balanced, and ready for another day. Every time we take a sip of alcohol, we witness something remarkable. A silent team of organs, enzymes, hormones, and billions of cells working together to protect us. That invisible effort is a reminder that our body is not an unlimited machine, but a living system that responds to every choice we make. Understanding biology isn't about fear or guilt, it's about awareness. The more we appreciate what happens beneath the surface, the better we can make thoughtful decisions that support our health, energy, and future. Small choices, repeated consistently, often shape our lives far more than dramatic moments ever will. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What surprised you the most about alcohol's journey through the human body? Please share your answer in the comments so everyone can learn from different perspectives and experiences. And if you enjoy exploring the incredible science hidden inside everyday life, don't forget to subscribe and support the channel. Your support inspires us to keep creating more fascinating stories that bring biology to life.